Good evening. I'm Anthony Farina, and this is Fire Team Philosophy. It's Thursday, 30th of November, and tonight we're not going to focus so much on survival as we've done in the past, but more on relationships and important things that come along with relationships as we, carry on. What's up? What's up, people? Good afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are from around the world. We have people all over the globe tune into this show for some reason every week. It's really going great. I talked to a web guy earlier today briefly, so we're going to try streaming from a website where all the videos will be on there, along with a forum for people to actually communicate after the show, talk about episodes, whatever. So we're kind of progressing. YouTube turned out to be a little bit too difficult to get into. So yeah, it rained last night and I got a fire. Yeah, that's right. This wood was freaking soaking wet. So what's up there, Eugene? Tell Madison I said what's up. Good to see everybody else tonight. Thank you for tuning in. If you're just starting now, I'm your host, Anthony Farina. So secret to getting a fire going when the fire is really wet or it's been raining. First of all, it's in the dry tinder, okay? And there's going to be dry wood everywhere. You just got to keep your eyes open for it. The forest covers a vast amount of wood even during a rainstorm. So if you have to dig down into a tree a little bit, get some bark from about 1 inch into the tree, you can use that as some tinder to start a fire. Then you just slowly build. It just takes a little longer. This took me about a half hour to get going today. So you can cheat, obviously, and use fire sticks or all that crap, but what's the fun in it, right? I mean, imagine if I had a show one day out here and, she can hear me. Okay, I thought you said she can't hear me. I was like, then we got some problems. Imagine if we had a show that didn't have a fire. That's kind of central to it. And the tea, pomegranate tea today. So a couple things. First with that, yes, you can get a fire going even when the wood is wet. It's going to smoke a little more than usual, but that's fine. The second thing is, when it rains and it's cold or it's snowing and you've been out and say you're freezing and you can't really get your hands moving, people get defeated mentally. They start to think they can't get a fire going. So don't do that. It's always possible to make a fire. You just heat and friction. One key component, if you're using 2 sticks, you get like a bird's nest, some moss, and put it in a little padded place, somewhere dry, and then you get a hardwood on the bottom, you get a softwood on the top, take your shoestring, put something on top of the stick, and then you rotate the shoestring back and forth as quick as possible. That takes a lot of effort. I've seen it done in under 2 minutes by this SEER school instructor in the military. The guy was out of breath when he did it, but it is possible to do that. So Lisa, what's up? That chai tea with cream is where it's at. That's right. Chai tea and a little bit of cream, man. So if you guys ever had chai tea, go try it. That's good stuff. Now over in the Middle East, when they give you a cup of chai, that stuff's real hot, but they put like a ton of sugar in it. It's the best stuff ever. So is this bread. They put this bread in the oven, and it's unleavened. And I swear the bread is like a 3-course meal. So I would go back over to Iraq just to have that damn bread. And a lot of people can agree on that. Anyway, it's getting a little off topic here. But what do we have tonight? Well, tonight is primarily talking about relationships. Why? I believe around the holidays it gets really stressful for people in relationships in general. And there's some things we just don't think about. And I'm hoping that some of the things I can say today, this is for all ages, this talk tonight is something you can use, or maybe a thought will occur to you to help better your relationship and keep it more peaceful or grow it throughout the holiday. Now, by no means am I a relationship expert. I've learned a lot of what to do and what not to do throughout the years. It usually comes with the price of pissing people off. And then you find out later, okay, don't do that in the future. That's why I've been able to learn a good amount. So I am going to jump in on the show here. And am I famous? No, I am not famous. What's your channel name? I don't know. I don't have a channel name. That's something I'm talking with the advisor about. FiTP is too long. FTP.com is taken. If you, however, Sarah, by the way, your book's sent out to you. Sorry, it's taken a couple weeks. if you can help me come up with a name for a website, I will be truly grateful. It's going to encompass, both books that I've written, plus all these videos, plus forums for people to talk and discuss whatever comes in the future. So that's right. Now, Trevor Honnigan from Canada is joining us. Trevor, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Search and rescue. Trevor's the man. He's a guy I really took a liking to up there. He's full of knowledge. So, those guys who do search and rescue, man, they see a lot of stuff, and they really they go through a lot of stuff for the training too. Hey, good to have you with us, Trevor. So, while the tea is cooling, first of all, why do I talk about relationships so much? Well, when I've been, divorced and I've been single for almost 3 years, what makes me the person to tell you or anybody else out there any good advice, since I can't manage to keep one? I'm going to share this with you. I believe I have a few qualifications. Well, since my divorce, I've been working to really understand what it is I need to do as a person to be better. And in that, it had to take me back to all of my relationships and find out, not just with women, but with friendships as well, where was I going wrong? Because obviously, if I keep screwing up and pissing people off, there's a fault with myself. That took a while for me to digest. I had to sit there and look in the mirror and find out, as I'll later reveal, the heart of all my problems were selfishness. The letter I. I comes with almost everything we do these days. When we put I central of the relationship, that's what I was doing. I was too clouded in my vision of what it meant to be self-sacrificing, to be deserving to keep a relationship. Now, could I be in one and make it flourish and be happy? Yes. Do I want to? Not really, because I'm still growing and learning. I feel that there's a lot of other people in my life who are great examples of how good relationships should be. For example, Lisa, the one who commented about the chai tea. Her and her husband, they have a very strong relationship in my view. And I mean, for God's sakes, they were in freaking Korea for like a year. So that'll test anybody. So Lisa is often a person I'll ask advice about. Hey, I'm doing this. How do you do this? And what can I learn from it? So that's why I'm talking about relationships. It's the main thing tonight, besides having our good old fire in the cold, right? So let's see here. All of you just joining, I am Anthony Farina, your host for Fire, some pomegranate tea, and a little bit of philosophy, huh? We got 2 stories tonight. Good stuff. One is about a king and his search for happiness, and about a wise man in his search for truth. Within these stories, I hope that you can take away an abundance of knowledge, just as I did when I was looking them up, because it applies to everyone in all aspects of our life, not just the people involved in the story. But first, let's hit on some statistics, right? If this is going to freak you out. Well, not so much the first one, but 40% of marriages as of 2015 end in divorce. There's 4 primary reasons why a marriage or a long-term relationship ends. These 4 are the basic factors that were summed up overall. So, not with host with the most. See, that's a good. Dude got a lot of shit going on. So, thanks, Lisa. All right, so selfishness and narcissism. Hello. I'm sorry, I don't think I could ever not be a narcissistic asshole. It's in my genes. That's going to make me the old lonely guy who dies in a cabin somewhere. I think I can accept that. I comfort myself with my old stupid jokes. But not making your relationship a priority is the second most important thing that is a contributor for failed relationships. Angry outbursts and rage, and we'll actually get into a little physiology of this. You're going to like this. And infidelity. Now, there's two forms of infidelity that are becoming widely accepted. One is obviously physically cheating, sleeping with someone else. The other is emotional infidelity. When you start to pay more attention to someone of the opposite sex, or just someone, whoever, if you're married to the same sex than another person, outside of your relationship. So those things put together in a little bowl of Cheerios equals not a good breakfast, and it dissolves a marriage, and it's just not a good thing. So what do we have again? We have selfishness and narcissism. Can't get over that shit. All right, not making the relationship a priority, angry outbursts and rage, and infidelity. So those are your four key things right there. Now, what happens to the average person? Let's say you've been in a fight. Everybody here is watching has been in some fight that's been in a relationship somehow. Hey David, what's going on, man? Everything's going good over here in Indiana. Oh yeah, live from Christmas Lake Village. That's right, we had the Festival of Lights, we got the Rudolph, and we got Santa's post office. All the mail through the world comes around this little post office every year. It's like the size of this house over here. Anyway. Damn, people are texting me. All right, so when we start to have angry outbursts, at first it's a little shocking and it's going to demean somebody. So you start blowing up at your partner over something little because you had a bad day. Okay, later you go back and apologize for it. Well, guess what you already started just from that first angry outburst? You started a cycle and you didn't even notice it. Here's what happens. I'm reading this. This is from a peer-researched journal from this I didn't write it, but it was from some psychological school. Okay. When the negative cycle begins, and it begins with an angry outburst or fighting, we begin to count negatives unconsciously against the other person. So in our subconscious, we're adding up all these little things throughout the day to validate why we were mad in the first place and got mad, because it makes us feel like crap whenever we yell and scream and all that shit for no reason. Okay, next part, you don't know what's going on, but you can't control. Have you ever heard of the parasympathetic nervous system? That's the fight or flight. That's the mama bear is hiding her cubs and backed in the corner, and she has to fight, or she has to run to survive. Your brain does that, okay? When you fight, when you have an angry outburst with someone, your brain goes into this mode. You don't even know it. It produces the chemicals adrenaline and cortisol. Cortisol has been on TV, talking about it's a stress hormone. It's a big factor in gaining weight and all that stuff. So when this happens, what we got here? 1% is what happens, 90% is how you react. Yeah, it's called marriage, bud. Yes, it is, but that's the talk tonight, Nick. I'm trying to help people maybe deal with these things a little bit better. That's how mine ended. So, but just some interesting stuff. So, why do we do this? The adrenaline, the cortisol kick in, we react with rage, we start fighting. Okay, then we come back and we apologize. But from that moment on, everything that you start to do until you've really, truthfully, not only resolved that issue with that person, but with whatever is bothering you, you start to nitpick at the little things that go on. Now, over time, this becomes not so much a relationship where you are fulfilling each other's needs through love and happiness. You're codependent on justification of your actions or your past actions. That's a big difference. You can begin to question why you're in the relationship in the first place. Sooner or later, that is what they say contributes to 40% of all divorces. Now, there's a button-pushing analogy, and I'll let you know why. Now, why does this happen with the people we love versus, and it could be the person you're married to or just a friend or somebody else, versus people that we really don't know, unless you're just an angry asshole and you're yelling at everybody. Because the button-pushing analogy is like this. If I know person A very well, and then person B I don't know really all that much, and I have a disagreement with the two of them, person B I'm going to poke at from the outside and try and get them riled up. They could walk away, brush it off, whatever. Hey, what's up, Karen? Good to see you. Person A, however, I know them, so from the inside, I know what makes them work. That's where I'm pushing buttons instead of from the outside. I'm hitting all the fine pressure points on that person to get a reaction out of them. And over time, that just creates chaos and conflict. So it's so important that you avoid that one thing. And the other thing it goes into is as you begin to keep tally of who's doing wrong and right, or you bring up something that happened 10 years ago so you haven't quite let it go, is that you forgot to make the relationship a priority in certain respects. It's a domino effect, and it keeps. And then before you know it, you become really selfish. You know what? He didn't take out the trash last week, so I'm gonna sit here and not make him a sandwich. I don't know. Come up with your own analogy, something like that. Then it leads to infidelity in some cases. So that's basically the trend, and that's kind of interesting how that happens. And the whole time it starts out with just a simple angry outburst. Now, we're all fallible. Anger is a human emotion. Being angry at the right person at the right time is the true heart. Being angry at the right person at the right time is a true heart. Not being able to use your anger anywhere you want to please. So, why do people with, let's say, PTSD, for example, have such a harder time with this? Because there's an imbalance of chemicals in the brain. The cortisol, the adrenaline can be triggered to release in the brain at something totally random. And that's why vets do have typically a harder time in relationships. It sucks. But it is true, this was proven this year, those with head injuries, you've had concussions, this could be from a fall, we're not even talking vets. Your brain needs more time to recover at night. You need more sleep. And typically, I remember whenever I was married and I would sleep, my ex would be beating me up about wanting to sleep so much. I was just so freaking tired. I couldn't understand it. Healthy eating plays a big role in that, and so does exercise. But you still require more sleep than the average person does. Your brain, it takes time to heal. So all these things add up into this negative factor. So what do we got going on here? Sometimes it's hard to let go. You got to communicate with your partner or your friend. Yes. So that's good because we're going to get to how do you fix all this crap, or what should you do? Both what I'm about to say is from what I was able to talk to different people about and what I've learned on my own. So it kind of sums up to communication. So also, drinking or under the influence, if you have to talk about something and you know that your partner is drunk or has taken some kind of muscle relaxer, narcotic, some kind of mind-altering substance, it is highly suggested you do not bring up those important issues while they're in that state. Wait till they got a clear head and sleep it off. Why? Because that is when it's so easy to lose control of that train of thought. Okay, so if you got to clean up your laundry, do it over a cup of coffee. Or tea, bloody good Joe. All right. So you take a break after you've had your drink, come back to the table with a clear head, and then talk about it. But, it sounds all easy on paper. What do you have to do? You have to practice these things. That, by practicing these good habits of knowing when to fight, knowing how to pick your battles, that's called making your relationship a priority because you're doing something proactively to engage in that relationship. Now, it's not going to be all, butterflies and a bowl full of cherries, some shit. You're going to have your bad days, but that's why it's important to do the right things on the good days. So when the bad days do come, you're more prepared for it, and it's lesser of a burden to deal with. Too simple, we would think. But in the end, it's all about what your needs are versus that person's needs. Do both your needs line up? Do both of your goals? There's one in here for short term, one for long term, whatever. That's a huge factor in everything else. Lisa, practicing. Yeah, you practice. Practice makes perfect. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. You ain't taking your spouse there, though. All right. But what do all of these factors, those big 4 points, lead to? What is the ultimate one thing that separates a relationship no matter what? Loss of trust. Because over time, let's take it from big issues to small issues. So you cheat on your spouse or your girlfriend. Well, there's a big trust gap right there. She can't trust you. So if you do stick around and she allows you, then you have to constantly be working to build that, and she's going to constantly be aware of it. So a little bit less is, let's say, the little things. You can lose trust all at once, or you can lose it slowly over time. How do you lose it over time? Well, it's simple. Hey, babe, I'll take the trash out. A day later, it's not taken out. Okay, it's not a big deal right away, is it? No, not really. But let's say over the course of months or years, all these little things you keep saying you're going to do, you never do. And before you know it, there's no trust in that relationship. So if you have a bad time of keeping your word on the small things, in the long run, it's as bad as cheating, believe it or not, because it ends in the same thing, a loss of trust. And then the relationship's gone. So it's important that as much as you can possibly think, to work on those small things to make it go good, you know. My aunt, how you doing? Communicate. If you want to stay with your love. See, that's sound advice from an old woman, not an old woman. You're not an old woman, Aunt Beeb. from a good woman who knows what she's talking about. Communication is key. John, what's up? Can't watch what's going on. Saying address is invalid. I have no idea what's going on. I've got viewers right now. So, wrong. Okay. Wrong. He's right. The address is not invalid. So, anyway, remember, the small things over time become very huge. You can let a few things go every now and then. We're all going to forget stuff. But when you become the person who cannot keep your word, yeah, don't call a woman old. I know, I'm going to hear it around Christmas time. I got it. So, when you have a track record of not keeping your word on the smallest things, how can you, do the big things? Taking out the trash is same as cheating. No, you're missing the point. It's all the examples of the little stuff over years. When you fail to fulfill on your word in the little things, trust loses at a slower rate, and the problem is we just don't notice it as much. So yeah, cheating is a very bad thing, and it can cause the division immediately. But when you can't keep your word to someone that you're supposed to swear, protect, and love and all that stuff, what signal does that send? If it ends in the same, if it ends the same way, which is loss of trust, is where we're going at. So that's the whole point of it. Now, to each his own. I say the morals of both is, in my view, is the same because it's important. Another person may not. That's, again, why philosophy is just that. Philosophy isn't a science. So if you think differently, that's great. But like I said, these things that I'm going over are to open your mind and get a view of maybe stuff you're not thinking about that can one day better your life or save your relationship. So, and I hope it does. God knows these are the things I didn't pay attention to. Not talking about the cheating, but, the little things. I always blew them off too much. I blew off. I was the one who got angry about shit. I was an angry guy when I left the service, So these days, I don't let stuff get to me too much, except for algebra. I get this old algebra teacher, man. She's like a third grade math teacher, and now she's, way up in her years, and she just sets me off. So I am staying away from algebra, called laziness. Yeah, so we thought we were going to be the star of our own John Wayne movie. Yes, and what happens when your expectations aren't met and you're not the star? You got to eat crow, right? And it sucks. Then you try to figure out who to blame. Thanks, buddy. Good to see you, Chris. So the point in that whole philosophy is make every obligation an important one. No, the math teacher is old. She's like 85, and she's, let's not get into her. She teaches the Common Core math, 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, so 2 is this, and then if you don't do it this way and write it, she comes over. She actually swatted my hand away from the notebook, and it got stupid. I'm trying to control the anger. No learning was taking place at that point, Damon, and screw algebra. So, why are most people failing today? Well, it's simple. It's this mindset that's been adopted that I think we're not really coherent to. We want someone to lay next to us on the couch while we're busy looking at Facebook and Instagram. We want someone to be there around the holidays with us, but we don't treat them as important as the gifts that we're giving them. We think that those gifts are going to make up for everything else. We want to be popular and have a million friends and all the attention in the world, but when it comes down to it, we can't figure out how to really make things work with not one single person. We want to live through the eyes of other people, but we don't know how to really be alive in ourselves. That's where we're failing today. We're letting other things intercede on the important stuff in life. And we're doing it without noticing it. It's becoming such a big trend these days. And it's sad. It's very sad. Whatever happened to the old values and the old way of doing things where it wasn't really like this. There was a time, when I was growing up and Nick was growing up and Chris was growing up, and just for example, they would bring hunter safety education into our grade school, and they would have the rifle and shit there. Now we can't trust all that stuff. We see everything on the news and we freak out, but it's not really the truth half the time. Now you have to research everything in such a broad spectrum just to get an ounce of reality. So what do? Well, go back to the basics. Even in everything you do, go to the basics. Bruce Lee would even talk about how you need to know the basics and do them very quickly in order to, be an effective fighter. So when he would do all these flashy moves and kicks and stuff, a lot of it is the same move over and over. It's just done with perfection and speed. So what if we could think with speed and act with perfection when we do the small things? We wouldn't have to worry about cheating because maybe we would be loved more by the other person who is with us because the relationship becomes more fulfilling. Maybe there would be much more of a level of deepness and closeness with those one or two people that we don't need the whole world's approval for anything. Maybe those basics are what we're forgetting in today's world. I don't know. You tell me. Now, this isn't to say that every one of you, I'm talking to, hey, your relationships suck. Some of you, like I said, have got some really great relationships, and I hope I can aspire to have that one day. This is just, again, if you're tuning in, this is just some general advice, some things I felt that was a view is not often presented, and I thought that maybe this should be talked about. So, what we got here? Muscle memory, exactly. So, what is it for movement? And specifically martial arts, it takes 2,300 repetitions of that movement to become muscle memory for you to react on instinct. So yours is great. Chris has his picture. Everybody's got this picture in a canoe. And he's got his big stomach there, and he's floating down the road there in the river. And he's like, "Come at me, bro." That's muscle memory for you. So, all right. So, in the end, we lose sight of what was important and what we really have, and we run. Or we think of a reason to run. Or we see somebody else is living in a better way, and we want that, and we run. Stop running. Like I said a couple episodes ago, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Sometimes the grass just needs to be cut. And if it is greener, there's probably a lot more manure over there. So don't worry about that shit. My wife is way better than any of yours. Shut up. You didn't like the canoe story? Sorry, Chris. I had to, buddy. I miss you. I had to give you a little warm welcome here to Fire team philosophy. So that's what relationship. So hey, on to the 2 stories tonight, and then I'll get to some closing points. In the meantime, please ask your questions, comment, whatever. If you want to hear something, we'll keep it going. So the first story, within these 2 stories, I feel that it's going to be a very good way to answer a lot of these relationships problems, because the 2 stories encompass the things we face probably long term for the most part. Okay. So the first story is about this king. This king was very generous to all his people. Now, there wasn't a person in the kingdom who was displeased with how the king treated the subjects and everything else. He was a fair king and he was loved by many. But the king, he was depressed. He was sad all the time, though. He focused putting his love into others. And so, as time goes on, his magistrates and councilmen and all these people in the court, they want to make the king happy. And so they come up with a plan. And they say, okay, what we will do is we will go across the whole kingdom, east to west, north to south. And in this kingdom, we will find the happiest person. We will bring him here, and we will give the king the clothes of the happiest person. So that way, when the king sees himself dressed in the clothes of the happiest person, he too can emulate that and be happy. They thought it was a great idea. So they go about their way. They go across the land. They find shopkeepers. They find innkeepers, people who own horses, and a guy who owned Panera Bread, and another guy who made that bread from Iraq. That was some good shit. They weren't really as happy as this one person, though, They found this saint. And he was a humble old man. But as one of the councilmen seen him, he's seen how content the man looked. He was woodworking. He was doing something with wood. And so he goes up to the man and he says, the king needs you. We need to bring you to his audience immediately. And reluctantly, the saint goes with. So when the saint gets to the court, the king has all these jewels and he has these women and he has this big feast prepared for this man because he's so eager to get this happiness. Understand what it is this happiness is that the saint possesses. And the king starts handing him all this stuff, and the saint's like, I'm sorry, I don't know what you want me to do with all this. And the king is like, well, it's yours. Just let me know what it is that makes you happy. And he's like, but first give me your clothes. And he's like, well, I can't give you my clothes. It's the only thing I own. You see, I live a very humble life. And the method and idea I serve is a very simple one. It's like the river. One day, you're here floating with life's current, and the next day you're gone flowing somewhere else. And he said, as am I, today I'm here, but tomorrow I will be gone, the clothes I need to stay alive. And with that, the king excused him. And now over the night, it occurred to him, and he finally knew what the wise man meant, is that his desires, all the things, material that he had acquired and set his goals on, he did at the sacrifice of having a queen. He did not have the one thing that could make him happy, and that's someone to share the happiness with. And also, it was in that mindset of material desires that he learned nothing material will make you happy in the end. Sure, they may bring us times of happiness or point us in different directions, but ultimate happiness lies in just accepting what you had. That man accepted just the clothes on his back and his way of life, and he was the happiest man in the kingdom. So the moral of that is, what can we do instead of trying to always have this target to own more, buy more, get more for this, or get another degree, or whatever? Can we be happy with just what we have right now and make the most of it? Tend to the grass on your side. Nourish it, and it will grow. You don't need to keep going out everywhere else and buying things, because then it creates more emptiness, which creates more misery. It's like, no offense to people with iPhones, but every year they're coming out with a new iPhone, right? Why? I don't know. Now they got the iPhone X out. It's like that when I see people lined up to buy the brand new iPhone on the day it's going on sale, or any toy. Take your pick. You know, is that really the epitome of your happiness? Is to go get that material thing that's going to be outdated in a couple years, when all the effort and money and time you spent getting that money to get that thing could have been reinvested in something else a little bit better, like the people in your life? Because in the end, relationships are the most important thing. All of us, even if you're single, you still have relationships in your life. So aren't they the most important thing? So living in ontology. Ontology, I'm not really familiar with that word, Matt, I have to say. But that's interesting. I'm going to look up what that means. So then the next story is the man who searched for truth. Right? He beyond more or less, that which is. Oh, okay. Hey, new word of the day. Ontology. Beyond more or less, that which is. That's kind of cool. I like learning shit. And see, it's all because I invest an hour of my time every week. I learn cool stuff like that. We got a comment from Nick. So it says, my 3-year-old son, knock knock, daddy. Me, who's there? Him, toilet. Me, toilet who? Toilet pickle. We laugh like hell. Happy. Right? Your kids can say like the jokes that just don't make sense, but if they're laughing and getting you engaged, you can't buy that. That's actually a perfect example, Nick. I like that. So the toilet joke brought it full circle tonight. So the happiness thing, right? Or the search for truth. The man who searched for truth. So one day there was this wise old man, and he set out to search for truth. And so along his travel, he heard this story of he was told, go into this cave in this distant land, and in this cave is this well. And when you speak into this well, ask your question, and it will answer you. So the man sets out. And after many arduous days of crossing the mountains and the deserts, he comes to this cave, and he finds the well. And he yells into the well. He says, what is the meaning of truth, and how do I find it? And the well replies to him, do not search for truth, search for happiness. Because in happiness you will find truth, when it's real happiness. So the man says, okay, how do I find happiness? The well says, go to... Thanks, man. I'm proud of you too, Chris. Chris, you know I've come a long way from a lot of shit, man. That's what I'm doing. I'm just trying to move up, brother. Humble as hell. And just eat humble pie every day. That's what happens. But, so the well tells the guy, go to this place, and at this certain place in the land, you'll see three roads, okay? And in those 3 roads, you'll find the truth. So, all right, hey, good seeing you, Matt. You take care. Thanks for joining tonight. So the man sets out to go to this place, and he finds the 3 roads. And so on one of the roads, you know, he looks at 2 of them, and they're empty, and a third one has these shops. And there's 3 shops on one of the roads. He goes to the first shop, and they sell wood there, and woodworking tools and all this other stuff. The second shop, they sell metal parts. And the third, they sell wire. Man's like, He's very dumbfounded. He's kind of almost angry because he stays there at these 3 shops for a while, contemplating the meaning of what the well said. Happiness? Here, there's no happiness here. It's a desert place. There's 3 shops that sell these items, and there's nothing I can find. So he goes on his way. And for years he travels still thinking about the riddle, but eventually it fades from his mind. Now in his old years, as time has faded, there's that word old again. I swear I'm going to get my ass kicked by a retirement community after this show. So he's out in his backyard or whatever, in his garden at nighttime, and he hears this satire playing. The satire is like a guitar. And so he goes over and he gets a closer look, and he sees this old man playing the satire. And he notices, and it hits him right there, the satire is made of wood, metal parts, and wire. And then the conclusion happens. it was in the simple things, in the music, in the purpose of the music that brought him happiness. But with this story, you can replace the three shops with one that sold love, one that sold hope, one that sold faith, or trust or whatever. There's these elements. So in that, he figured it out. It is that in life we're given the different parts to happiness and truth. But how often do we assemble those parts? If we can figure out how to assemble the parts that we have in life and we know what to do with them, you can create happiness. So instead of looking around for all the other stuff out there in the glamorous world and online and stores, look at what you have. Look at the parts you have and look at what you're missing. And then go get the right parts and assemble it in your life. Maybe a part is some better tea, because this shit's cold as hell tonight. Maybe it's the right person. I don't know. Maybe it's a mirror so you can look deep within your soul. There's some philosophy for it. So anyway, so those two things. Learning that the material objects aren't going to make you happy, but understanding the parts in life you have just need to be assembled in the right way. Some good shit, right? Two totally different stories, but they both tell a very important message, right? So, cha-cha. Nice. So, and then last, let's see what we got here. Oh, man. Well, we're coming to 45 minutes, almost on close. So, lastly, I'll say this. With my daughter, it's been kind of rough. I know a lot of you kind of heard about this, but I believe I finally figured out what it is to do. So I consult, and this is an interesting fact, I consult this child psychologist, and they say that women, it's when they, between 22 and 26 years old, there was some kind of neural pathway, he gave it a scientific name. He said that's when it's formed in their brain, and in that it's like this point of clarity or understanding that the things done to them in the past matter most at that time. So that is why I may be distant from my daughter at one point now, is because she's simply not reached the age to gather all that. So he says you have to stay the course in doing things right, and being a good father, keeping your word, all that other stuff. To when that time in her life happens, it comes through. So he said, "No, just got here." Hey, hey, what's up, Robbie? Robbie Grayson, good to see you here. Don't worry, this will be on the post thing. So. It'll be on the videos later. So, with that, I had to go back, and over the past couple months, I've really done some digging, and it hit me. It just hit me recently. One of the reasons I have such division with my daughter is because of my own selfishness. Because of, me expecting to come home after being out of her life physically for so long. I expected these good things. And then when she didn't want to go somewhere or do something, I got angry about it. I felt offended. I was hurt. It was I who was in the wrong. At no point was I fully taking into consideration how my daughter was feeling about all this stuff. It was selfishness. And when I realized that, man, I have been being a selfish father. What type of example does that set to my daughter as her father, to be selfish and not think of her needs first? Thanks, Chris. You've been there too. It doesn't set a good one, and shame on me for not being a good father and waking up to that fact. So that's why I'm setting out now to just, she didn't want to, she talks. We talk weekly, which is good. And that's big progress. But she didn't want to visit for Thanksgiving. It hurt, but I was like, you know what? Okay. I'm not going to force her to do this. Why force her? I mean, when I was a child, I was forced to go see my parents, and, all of us when we're teenagers, last thing we want to do is that shit. So, young and had a war to fight. Thanks, Boone. That's right. We are human. But in life, is it not true that we should walk and seek knowledge and make ourselves better each day? Because if you become a better person, and you can master these morals, and learn how to deter and fight the bad things in your life, isn't that benefit to everyone else? Shouldn't we strive to be a little bit better every day? I think so. I think that is the biggest thing. And just to announce him real quick, Boone Cutler, ladies and gentlemen, he's like a big advocate in the veteran community. Boone was recently at Congress by the American Legion, I think, or VFW, one of the two, flew him up there, and they were speaking on the effects of marijuana versus all these prescription drugs they're pumping vets full of, and these drugs are killing people. I had to go in to the doctor today. I'm on just stuff like blood pressure medicine, but I'm just feeling sick lately, like sluggish, sick, and I drank 11 liters of water yesterday. I counted because every time I drank a liter bottle, I put a mark on it. And I got some tests done, and no, it's not diabetes, like everybody was saying. There's just stuff with the thyroid and the pituitary that's going crazy. What's that from? It's from having to pump 15 damn pills in your system every day that the VA says you need to take. I mean, they're literally, I've got to find a way to repair my body because I feel like I'm sick. And that's why I've kind of cut drinking out of my life and all that other stuff. So the VA does that. So marijuana, there's plenty of stories. Talk to the vets if you don't believe me that personally that do take a lot of prescription meds. I don't have marijuana in the house. I mean, Indiana is one of the worst states for laws, but it's just good. Boone's out there fighting the good fight for that. HIV cause, you're gay. Screw you, Chris. I had an incident this past week with 2 of my kids. Well said. Thank you, Robbie. And screw you, Chris. So anyway, no, it's not HIV. I don't have the HIV. All right, I'm gonna dry spell forever. So look, the thing is, I don't get why there's this natural cure out there, or this natural treatment, and it's being fought so hard. Boone's the man to talk to about that. CBD fixes endocrine issues. No kidding. I'm going to have to start ordering the CBD. But, Boone, did you know, this was on NPR, it was on a local radio station on Tuesday. And 2 months, Indiana has to clear all the shelves of CBD. They're making it illegal. So, I don't even know if you guys are going to be able to ship here anymore. All right, Dave, then we'll see you tomorrow. We got a Latin test tomorrow, and then we got a final following week. I'm taking another semester of Latin. I decided I'm going to do that. It's a very great, rewarding course. So, anyway, with that, it's the pharmaceutical industry is more bent on killing people than they are curing. And it's, okay, hey, John, good to see you, man. What's CBD? Cannabinoid oil. Or cannabidiol oil. It's the extract from the THC. So it does. I've tried a little bit of it. It's what helps. They're making it legal in Indiana for people with seizures. So you'll see the thing. So I'm going to kick the AG's ass in Indiana. Tell him for me. I will, buddy. I will. So because it's crazy, they're killing people. And I tell you what, a lot of you know me, and I'm not afraid to say this. I was hell bent on being suicidal for the longest time when I came out. Since getting off those prescription drugs and the antidepressants, my mind is a little clearer every day. It is. And that's saying don't use prescription drugs, But for me, it's just really, it's really heartbreaking to know that, this shit I was told was going to help me out, it's killing you. It's not helping anything. So anyway, there's big debates on that, and you're going to hear a lot more about marijuana and veterans in the future. Everybody will, because it's such a big topic right now. So with that, in closing, last little bit of knowledge. Latin class. Why am I staying? Why am I studying a dead language? I'll tell you why. This teacher is freaking amazing. He's kind of like the Persian teacher I had when I was in the Special Forces qualification course. He teaches not only the dynamics of the language, he teaches the history, a lot about Rome. And it's interesting to see that our country is following the same path of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was built on war. It was it conquested, 50 something AD, I think it was, to 50 BC to 500 AD, something like that was the time. I think that's the dates of the Roman Empire. So they're built on war. They spread out, and eventually they couldn't maintain the stronghold. Rome collapsed. All right. So with that, he teaches us just a lot of great stuff. And he says this one thing. He says, it's so important that we know our history so we don't repeat it. Because there's all too many times we can look here in our own country's history to see where we're actually repeating shit we just shouldn't. And we're getting the same consequence when we repeat these things. And Darby is a wonderful daughter. And yes, she is. Darby's a great kid. She's been through a lot, you know. So love her to death, and I'll do anything for her. It's just the best thing I can do for her is make good choices, keep cleaning up my act, and becoming more humble. I have to set a good example for my daughter to find happiness in a good life. I don't want that bad effect to carry over to her. So my advice to anyone, look in the mirror tonight. What are you doing that you could do better? Are you forcing those in your life to make decisions or do things based on solely how you feel and you're not even noticing it? You'd be surprised what the answer is. Because, you know, by nature, we're selfish. When it comes down to it and we have to survive, we're selfish. We pick ourselves almost every time. And I'm not talking about taking a bullet for somebody or anything else. I'm talking like, you know, when it comes to the last breath or last water, we typically as humans will save it to preserve ourselves over anyone else. That's nature. Now, it doesn't happen all the time. But anyway, that's what I'm saying. We are all born with selfish nature. Okay, that's what keeps us living. We have to keep it in check. So fight that. And that's the thing. So I'm going to continue to take Latin to understand, you know, some of these key principles that are being taught. And one of them is about this Titus Livy, I think his name is. Livy wrote this book about the moral decay of the Roman society. Ab Urbe Condita is his name. You should look it up. So he wrote about how morals are the central thing that are so important to, you know, governing, and how it was becoming there were less morals in the Roman emperor or empire when they were collapsing. So Rome was a republic, then turned to an empire, I believe. Yeah, and we are a republic, not a democracy. Argument solved. So the doTERRA, I don't even know what the doTERRA is. Yeah, being human is lazy in nature. Look, if all I got to do is lay on the couch and eat bonbons and watch Jerry Springer and get fed water, I mean, we would always choose that route. We do hard things to better ourselves when we realize we have weakness. So maybe just start changing your thinking. If I do harder things to better myself naturally I'll become a better person. So that's where it goes. But yeah, so with Latin, another year of it, it's one of these dead languages I don't think I'll ever use, but I'm staying there for the value, the true value of what I'm getting out of it from so much more. So my hope is for you guys tonight is to go find a language that you want to study. Go to Babbel.com. All right, they do that shit for free too, and don't use Google Translator. It sucks. They've got so many mistakes in Google Translator, but Babbel can teach you a lot of different languages. You would be surprised what happens to your brain when you start to study a different language. A lot of things do happen. So anyway, that's about all the time I got for tonight, guys. Thank you for joining me out here in Santa Claus, Indiana. We've got finals next week, so sadly I don't believe I'll be having another show, but probably the week after that. We'll have to see how it goes. And from there, we'll definitely, that's right, the romper's coming. The romper Christmas or New Year's Eve episode is coming, baby. You guys asked for it. Y'all better show up and watch it. I'm only doing that thing one time. And your wife talks about you in Spanish to her mom. I wonder the things she said, Chris. I just wonder. They're all really great, I'm sure, Gary. All right, guys, I gotta go. I love you all. You're a great audience, and we'll see you. We'll see you in about another week or two. Okay, take care. And that's not shutting off. Let's. Good luck with finals. Thank you, Rachel.